Good afternoon. I hope all of you are well. We are enjoying nice, cold, snowy weather here. So it makes us all think of wonderful things such as financial reports. Today we're going to focus because, of course, as all accountants know, it is the end of the year, which means for us, besides the holidays, it usually means quite a lot of work. So what we want to show today are some of the standard reports and some of the compliance reports that are required for nonprofits or are even helpful, and sort of some easy ways that you can go ahead and get those into dashboards and financial statements, and also just to show sort of the ease of the navigation, and hopefully give you guys some ideas for getting together your reports and things for the end of the year in a timely fashion. So welcome to Financial Dashboards for Nonprofits. And we're talking about visibility into your financial data and best practices and ideas for getting a sense of your financial data. So just a little bit, all of a sudden my screen is freezing here, hang on. Just a little bit about me and us. I am a CPA, have been one in Missouri for over 20 years and worked with Turnkey for the last 5.5 years. Specialized primarily in nonprofits for the last 20 years. I've also done others, but it seems like it comes back to the nonprofits a lot. We do partner with all organizations that we work with to help them improve the way they do business and empowering them to deliver better experiences for their customer, better processes for their employees, and a greater profitability to the bottom line. We're founded in '94. As a service-oriented organization. We have a practice of over 50 full-time consultants. We're headquartered in St. Louis, and we do have quite a bit of nonprofit expertise. So, you know, Brad alluded to before, we do finance and operations ERP systems, which are drive down, of course, to the accounting and general ledger, CRM, customer engagement, and others. So today what we're really going to talk about is reports and dashboards. So a lot of what we're going to get into are the common financial reports that nonprofits need and use. And then I'm going to do some kind of showing and telling with some dashboards and reports. And then even talking about how we can use dimensions and grants to further restrict the data. I think Brad has a couple of questions for us before we begin. So we have a couple poll questions, just trying to get to know your needs a little bit.
Can you see the poll question, Wendy?
I cannot.
Okay. I think it should be showing now. So if everybody wants to go ahead and choose one of those or one or more of those on their screen. Hopefully I have that set up correctly. I might only have it as multiple choice, so we might that might not actually come out like we would think. We'll see here.
Yeah, if you're having trouble, just go to the chat section and type in a question or a statement.
Give it a few more seconds here, and then we'll show the results just so we know kind of what everybody's working with today.
So the question is?
Right now it's what reports do you currently run?
Okay. So trying to get an idea of what reports everyone runs, whether it's just the standard financial statements or whether you're actually doing some reports on key indicators, etc.
Okay, and it looks like we've got our results. Wendy, I don't know if you can see this, but we've got IRS 990 is 20%, statement of position is 40%, and statement of activities is 40%.
Okay.
0% for state reporting and 0% for annual reporting.
Okay, that's interesting. And let's do the next one while we're here.
Okay, let me just get that open here.
And if you have any questions about these reports as we go through them, make sure you go ahead and type them in, and we'll be happy to answer them at the end of the session.
Okay, so we're showing the second poll question now, which is how do you currently pull your reports together? The options are system-generated dashboards, Excel spreadsheets, or totally manual processes. Still getting some responses in here. Okay, and I will go ahead and show those results now. We've got 14% are system-generated dashboards, and 86% are Excel spreadsheets. 0% are totally manual processes.
All right, that's kind of what we expected. Excel spreadsheets seem to be the go-to, which is great. They just tend to be a little slower and also prone to error. So what we're going to do is go through, and I'm going to show you some of the types of reports and some of these dashboards and see if this isn't helpful to you. I don't know how many people are familiar with the new 958 formatting, which is for the statement of activities and the statement of position. Those are just saying that now what we had for our categories formerly were the permanently restricted, which is your endowment, your temporarily restricted, and your unrestricted. And now funds have been broken out into just two, and one is donor restricted and unrestricted by donors. So we're going to show a little bit of that. It's still, the crossover is still kind of similar. They're just not really showing the permanently restricted separate now. So they're, for sake of simplicity, they're combining them together. Most not-for-profits are also required to put together something called the Statement of Functional Expenses, and that's broken down by program. This is a real important report because it also helps prove to your donors, to those who support your mission, that your mission is not just being eaten up with G&A, it is also fulfilling its purpose. And then some of you have to file the 990, which are the IRS reports. So we'll come back and then we'll also bounce into some management reports and look at some things called performance cards, which are like KPIs, graphs, and financial reports. So again, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in. One of the reasons we're going to go through this is why is it so critical to have real-time graphs and reports? And I put some ideas out here, and I'm sure you have more. One is for quick closing, for accurate and timely reporting. Those of you who do Excel reporting know by now that when you have to stop and download data into a big Excel spreadsheets and kind of slice and dice those by whatever fund or program you're using, by the restriction type, it takes time. And so a lot of times when somebody asks for a report and you have to do it in Excel, it may take you a couple of days to have it, and guess what? By the time you've pulled that data, it's probably 3 to 5 days old. It makes it very hard to make decisions on. And it's also frustrating for everybody because many times you want to be on top and you want to be able to prevent issues before you get there. And it's very hard to do if you're pulling just historical data. Extra time exporting data to Excel to create reports costs the organization valuable time and dollars. My first career was at Boeing, and I will tell you that I spent quite a bit of time doing Excel spreadsheets, and that's how we pulled it out. Well, the disadvantage to that is, of course, it took a very long time to get those. And so the employees and those of you who are working for your nonprofits are charging and spending all this time exporting data and pulling it together rather than being able to make decisions. Where are we spending too much money? Is this vendor the best vendor? Is this donor, have they paid their pledge, or could we be getting more donors? You're spending your time on creating Excel reports. And then the other thing is, just looking forward. When you're pulling historical data and you're pulling things into Excel, you're actually looking at history, which is great. But a lot of times we want to make decisions based on forecast or based on current knowledge. And I'll show you some of those where you can look and see at a moment's notice what your expenses are this month compared to last month, what your donations are this month compared to next month or last month. And then again, while waiting for reports to be created, contributions that you could be trying to get or cultivating, and expense controls are lost. So when you're pulling data to find out how much vendors have been charging you for things, by the time you pull that data, it's old data. And so one of the things that this allows you to do with reports is you can actually look at vendor and vendor groups to see where you're getting the best price and who is giving you good discounts as opposed to those that aren't. And then without a clear roadmap of how dollars are being spent, donors are less apt to donate. All right, okay, so my English wasn't really good in that one. Donors are apt to donate less. I liken it to the Titanic. Nobody wants to donate to a Titanic, right? So if the impression that your donors get is that you always need money, they're not seeing how you're spending your money. And really what they want to see is, how is that mission being fulfilled? How are you spending your money? And so having those reports and KPIs that show the number of donations or the number of meals served or the number of students in your university or in your seminary, they're seeing clearly what your mission is accomplishing as opposed to waiting and waiting on data. So let's go ahead and get started, and I'm actually going to go over and switch over now to a program called Sage Intacct. It's one that we started working with about a year ago and really have enjoyed the ease of use. The data goes in and it's easy to see. So one of the first things I'm going to show you is the dashboards. So what a dashboard is a dashboard is just a way to put memorized reports, graphs, charts, and performance cards on here. So one of the things that I can see right now, and I'm actually going to switch dashboards, is I'm going to start with the compliance piece. So just an example of reports that not-for-profits are going to want to use, and not all have to file the 990, but most should have some monthly form of statement. Again, statement of activity, statement of financial position. These are good not only to keep your board informed, but it's also good, again, the more transparency you have in your financial reporting, the more confidence you're giving your donors that their money is going to a good cause. People want to donate to a vision, not to a ship that's sinking. And so that's why I liken it to, no one wants to support the Titanic. They want to support a mission and a vision. Where are you going? So on the compliance dashboard, one of the things that I added, which I think is really cool, is I added something called smart links. And so smart links are just basically hyperlinks that allow you to click and go to a specific site, URL, or a web page, excuse me. So here's an example where I went ahead and I set this up so that I could, if I wanted to see the IRS guidelines, I could just click on this, and I just have to blow it up a little bit, and it brought me right into the irs.gov website for information for charitable organizations. And it gives me all places to go if I need to look something up, if I need to look at how do I claim my unrelated business income tax. It's all right there. So again, trying to help make your ERP system or your accounting system a one-stop shop. The other thing I pulled is the FASB guidelines on the new 958 reporting. So I'm going to actually blow that up just a little bit because it's a little bit small there, and I apologize. So if I just page down here, scroll down, I'm actually into the FASB accounting standards update. And this is the one that actually was referencing the new 958 restrictions requirements and reporting. So that kind of is a way where I'm using this dashboard here to kind of help me with my work. It's like a place to start, so to speak. So let me show you a few others, and then we'll go in and just look at how we can kind of see these reports at high levels and then even other levels. So one of the things that I will explain to you about this sample company is going to be that we have different dimensions. And I'm sure all of you are aware in some sense of the word dimension, but a dimension is a way to slice the data. So in this case, we have dimensions, and if I were to look at dimensions, we have dimensions on restrictions. We also have dimensions on department, location, etc. So this is an example of a slide-in. So right now I'm at the high level of my not-for-profit organization, but I can also break it down by department. So one of the things that I think is really, really neat and being able to go in and out of these is that I can, let's say I want to just look at the data for Wallace Trust here. So if I go ahead and click on this, it actually opens up a separate tab for me. and when it gets done painting here, it's going to have the data just for that segment, just for that entity right there. So if you notice, my top level is still open, and if I come over here, now I'm in Wallace Trust, and all of this data would have been broken down to be dimensionalized. So for now, I'm going to go ahead and close this and just go back to the top level. The other thing that we can do is you can have more than one tab open. I don't know how familiar everybody is with SaaS environments and that software as a service, but this is, and that's where a lot of software is going, is all hosted in the cloud. So this program can be accessed from any device that has internet access and navigation. So we're using Microsoft Edge. You can use others, and I'm actually in my company. So with the two-layer authentication, I have logged in as a guest. That's my name here, and I now have access via the security to look at any of these entities. So I'm just on a simple browser. That's all I am. I don't require any special equipment. And so if you hear the word SaaS, software as a service, that's what it stands for. It stands for really the cloud-based architecture. So I'm going to go back over to my original. We're going to take a look at some of these new statements, some of the new compliance, and kind of get some ideas for things that maybe you want to see at a glance and you want to be able to drill down. The other thing that this does is anytime that you're downloading things into Excel, what you're doing is you're losing the ability to drill down into it like you'd like to. So one of the real powerful features of dashboards is the ability to drill down into data very, very quickly without having to go do any lookup. So for example, if I want to see what these undeposited receipts were for this month to date, I can drill down on it, and then I just get a little report that's telling me that it's in the 1150. It's given me the balance forward. So what that's telling me is that's just a balance. There was no activity in that month, but it was a balance from a previous month. So as we look at the statement of position, that is always a balance as of that date. So I can look again and see if there's any other data in here and drill down again. And in this case, we do have a balance forward, but then we also had an entry. So I can see right here that I have an entry in November for the $36,000. And yeah, I clicked it too many times. Sorry, let me do that again. Sometimes I click too fast, and if you click too fast, it gets confused. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that again and be patient and wait for it. And if I scroll down here and actually take a look at the screen, I can see that there was a journal entry as of 11/13 and who put it in, and I can see the actual journal entry. So it was a debit to accounts receivable and a credit to the revenue. So again, giving me the ability to drill down instantly and be able to answer questions instantly is of great value. The other thing I was going to mention is back in the days when I was a CFO, one of the things that I had to do was do the 990s, and 990s were not fun. So one of the powerful features that we have in here is not only do we have the ability to break down by dimension, we also have the ability to break these into account groups. So right here we have an account group that's being pulled into this report, and I'll actually show you the backbone of this one here. We're actually going to go into the statement of activities here. And so I'm just going to show you, I'm going to edit it just so you can kind of see what's in here. So this is a statement of activities, 958 format. That means that's the new with restriction and without restriction. And not trying to make this more complicated than it is, but I'm going to drill down here into the columns, and you can see here that I can go into these columns and do the restrictions based on that with restriction and without restriction. The other thing that I can do, and if I go too fast, somebody just type something, is I can use either account groups, or I can use dimension groups or dimension structure groups. So what that means is for reporting, instead of me having to go in and pull every single account that's a contribution, I can actually pull that account group called contribution, which pulls all of the contributions into one summary line. It makes reporting a whole lot easier. So I'm going to just go ahead and close. It just opened another browser for me, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. But again, we will take a look at some of these others. So again, one of the powerful features of reporting is, again, the ability to create these reports and dashboards on the fly. I'm going to take we'll take questions a little bit later, so if anybody has a question on a specific report, feel free to ask. I'm just going to show you a few others that are on this dashboard here. And this is the statement of functional expenses, and as you can see, I can actually make this bigger if I want. If I wanted to click into the report, I have to make it bigger here. Looks like it's going to let me make it bigger at the moment. I can look at this report here, which is called this is a professional fees and program expenses under this statement of functional expenses, and as you can see across the top, it's listing the function. And so those expenses are in another account group type, and you can see that it's showing me the youth center, the outreach, the management general, and fundraising, and it's allowing me to break those down across and see those at a glance. And again, the real strength of these is being able to see that data and drill down into that data that's there. So we also have some out-of-the-box reports. Everybody will be thrilled to know there's a statement of cash flows, indirect method and direct method. Nobody has to write those from scratch, so that's all good news, because I'm sure that was everybody's favorite part of accounting, was the statement of cash flows. All right, so I'm going to actually move to my other dashboard, which is called the dashboard for the not-for-profit controller. And this is my favorite one, because this is one that at a glance I can see things, and this is what gives me the power to look forward as opposed to just looking back. So every day, anybody who has this dashboard, and it can be signed to the controller, the CFO. Also, I will mention that the software can be used on tablets and on phones as well. So instead of you having to go answer these questions, it's something that someone can look up. So here I look at my total contributions, and I use December 15th because it's where there was a lot of data. But now I want to see what's behind this performance card. And what happens is when I blow this up, and I can see I'm getting cut off here. Hopefully I'm the only one here. It brings me into a report, and in this report I can look at the membership dues, and I can drill down into the contributions. So again, this is looking at budget versus actual, and I can see that my budget is lower than my actual. So if I close this out, that's what it's telling me. So it's saying that my contributions are $81,000 or almost $82,000 below budget. So that tells me right now on the 14th of November, this is 2015, that I need to do something about that. So it gives you the ability to make a decision, not waiting till the month closes, not waiting till this is all over. It's right there. It shows up every single day. My cash, maybe I want to know what my cash is at any one particular moment in time. Cash flow is very important. So this is telling me this is my current cash and that it's $45,000 above the previous month. You'll also notice that you can change the color with the arrows going up and down. So on my total contributions, when they're lower than budget, it's a bad thing. But on my expenses here, when they are lower than the prior year, that's a good thing. So it gives me a sense of where I am right at any moment in time. I can always drill down into these as reports if I want, and I can send them to a printer or to Excel, and I can also drill down on them. So I'm just going to look at what's in my legal fees, and I'm drilling down, and I can see all the journal entries. And so these are the journal entries where we were paying, looks like we were paying quite a bit for some legal fees here, and it allows us to drill down into these journal entries, which is nice. Pretty slick as opposed to having to go look up the data yourself or run a lot of reports. The other thing that's really powerful is the ability to use what are called statistical accounts. So statistical accounts are non-dollar accounts that can track things. So in this case, in this particular company, I'll show you in a minute, we have lots and lots of statistical accounts. So they have things like number of students, number of gifts. So if we want to look at here, we have number of gifts, and these are individual donations, and it looks like that it's up 10 from the prior period. So we would think that's a good thing, but then we look at total contributions and we see that it's lower than budget. So what we're seeing is smaller gifts than, so we have more, but they're smaller and we're not quite meeting budget. So again, I can look at this instantly and make that decision. The number of students, we can look at something like the number of students from the year before. And then, so these are what are called little performance cards here. So if I want to add a new one, they're very simple to add. I just hit the little plus sign. And I'll wait just a minute. Our Wi-Fi is a little slow in here. So I pick performance card, and then what I can do is I can pick what I want to use. And in this case, I'm going to take a look and see what's in my account groups. So as I look in my account groups, which then these can be all set up. So I did mention earlier that not only do you have your chart of accounts, but you can also group them into groups for reporting. So you can see that these are all 990 groups. So I'm going to go down a little bit because actually what I want to do is I want to look into my statistical accounts. So let's see if I want to look at my average number of gifts per donor, or maybe my actual gift per donor. So, and I have data back to 2013 in here. So if I don't have data for this period, I can actually pull up another one. And so I've just created this, and then what I can say is the average gift per donor, and if I want, I can pull it for the, hang on, let me scroll down to the current year to date if I want. This is the average dollar amount, so if it was a statistical account, I could pop down and make that either a number, or I could even use a percentage, but I'm just going to use currency, and then I'm going to round to the whole number. And then I can compare it. So I can compare it to either the budget or a different period. So I'll say, let's compare it to the prior period. And it says green. So when it exceeds the comparison, we're going to say that should be a good thing. And so I'm going to go ahead and click Save. And we'll see if I have any data there. So I do. So just in that instant there, I was able to create the average gift per donor is $13 this year to date, which seems awfully low. So that tells me right there that that may be something that we need to work on in our development, is looking at higher average gifts per donor. Another type of report that I like is a graph. So this one's kind of small right here because it's kind of all squished up, and what I may end up doing is see if I can make this a little bit bigger. All right, so I just made this one a little bit bigger, and that's the other nice thing about the dashboard is I can just kind of drag things around. So this is a one where I looked at attendance. So attendance was one of my statistical accounts, and as you can see, it looks like the attendance, and this was the net change going up and down, looks like it dipped in August. So what's really neat about this is I can actually go back here and I can process a journal entry right here on the fly. So we'll go back and look at it, and you'll see that August doesn't have any change here. So I'm going to actually go in and put in a very quick statistical entry here. And again, I'm on 2 tabs. You'll see me bounce between one. So I'm just going to pick a statistical entry, and I'm going to change this to be August because that was the month I was trying to affect. So I'll say August 31st. My description is just going to be attendance stat. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to make a statistical account here. So I'm just going to go ahead and get down to my attendance. There we go. Pick my attendance. And I'm going to say it was an increase. And I'm going to put the attendance was 178. And then the other thing I'll just mention, although I won't show today, is there's ability to set up allocations where you can allocate by fund and dimension automatically. So in this case, I'm going to pull a general allocation and let this allocate out based on a rule I set up earlier. And so now I'm just going to go ahead and post this. And if I go back to my graph now and I hit refresh, you will notice now that August is no longer dipped. So the data is real time and constant, which is a good thing because it keeps you up to date. So every single entry that's going in is updating your dashboards and reports, which makes it where you have instant data. The other thing nice about these dashboards and reports is it really allows those who are making decisions to make them quickly. Instead of having to come to you and have you pull data into Excel, you can actually just pull existing reports out, put them on. You can look at different graphs and charts. So another little graph and chart that I created here was, here's one called operating expense by function. So again, we looked at, if we want to get a breakdown and really look at it, we can click down into it. And we can break down even more. And you can see that the whole breakdown, it's by the different funds, and this one's one fund here. But you have different funds and departments within here. So this is by function. So again, it's just kind of a quick way of seeing what's going on. If I wanted to look at counseling services, if I hover over it, you'll see the counseling services makes up 39 of my operating expenses. Again, real nice things to know. If I want to look at my cash balance, where my cash is, I can just hover over again and see what the cash balance is in each one. The other thing I like are what are called on-demand reports. So it's not actually calculating it until I hit refresh, but here's one I set up a comparative state. It's actually a statement of position, even though I called it balance sheet. And you can see, I have to scroll down because I'm a little out of room here, that I created a report that when I run it, it goes ahead and gives me that statement of position. Let me scroll back. I'm kind of running out of room here in my dashboard. On a bigger screen, it works just a little bit better. And so again, some of the types of graphs and reports you can look at is when we do this plus sign. I'm just going to point out some different component types here. We can pull an existing chart, a general, a performance card, or we can actually pull in another report. So for instance, the smart links is what I pulled in before when I pulled in those, created a report that linked back to the IRS site. If I want a report that just links to an existing report, I have the option of looking at financials or memorized reports. And there's memorized reports out there that show everything from the draw detail to inventory, and those can be those are customizable, of course. Or if I just want to look at financial reports, I can scroll through the whole library of financial reports and look at things, financials by grant position. I can go down and look at revenue by, this would be donor instead of customer. Another neat one is the chart. So here's an example where I can go and pull in, say, memorized chart. Oh, I don't have anything in there today. Okay. So I'll just pull in a financial chart. That's fine. I haven't had anything set up. So if I want to pull in things like, again, and I remember I mentioned before the statistical accounts, attendance was a statistical account. Meals per site was, volunteer effort by program, clients per program, student participation. So there's so many ways to slice the data based on the dimensions and types. And so here is one. If we want to, I'm just going to go ahead and pull this report on to here, even though we're kind of running out of room here. And then I can take things off if I want as well. So I'm going to wait for it to paint in here, and it's trying to load the chart. So this is one that's really small. So again, this may be one I want to move up top so I can spread it out a little bit. Whoops, I just loaded it over the wrong one. Sorry, I loaded them over the top of each other, which is not what I should have done. But you get the idea that you can go ahead and put these in and you can look and compare things together. So this year probably, 2018 probably isn't the best year to use as a comparison because of the sample data in here. But I can actually even go in on the fly then and I can look at comparison. So maybe I want to look at the current, let's see, what did this say? This was current year to date. And I could look at it by reporting periods. I could look at it by even quarters if I wanted to. So this is looking at both revenue and expenditures. In here, we could also add other numbers. So again, that brought it, anytime it uses a financial report, it opens up in a separate tab. So I'm just going to go ahead and close that out and go back into my dashboard. So now if I decide I don't want this on my dashboard anymore, it's still a report, but I can just use the little trash can and go ahead and move that off my dashboard. The other thing is you can create dashboards for different roles and different users. So one of the things that's fairly neat is there can be a dashboard. I'm just pulling up a few of them here. There can be a dashboard for the person who's doing accounts payable so they can look and see what bills are due, or there can be one for the CFO so that he or she can see just what's going on at a glance. And then the other thing that's kind of nice about these metrics is there were a couple websites that voted the best annual reports by not-for-profits, and almost all of them used some kind of metric in the annual report to really capture those donors' attention. Things like the number of gifts per month or the average percentage of funds used on the program. And so again, it's all about reaching your mission and your goal and showing your donors that you are using their money in a wise manner. So we're just about to the end of this, just kind of showing a few quick things, and it's 2:38, so I think we have time for one more poll question from Brad, and then we will go into the question and answer section.
Okay, I'm going to show that last poll question here. Excuse me. On average, how many days does it take you to close?
This one's a loaded one because I know a lot of times it takes a long time.
Okay, we'll give it just a couple more seconds. Okay, we got all the votes in here. Those results are about 50% 8 days, 50% 10 or more.
Okay, so it sounds like everybody it's taking quite a bit of time. And with the Excel reports, that was kind of what we'd expect. So we're going to go into a question and answer session. If you have questions about the types of reports or any questions about what you've seen, go ahead and feel free to bring them up. Did we have any questions that came in during the session, Brad?
Yes, we do have one so far. What accounting modules are included in this software?
Oh, with the Sage Intacct?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's the basic financial ones, which is cash management, general ledger, accounts receivable, payable, purchasing, and sales order. So those are all standard with it. And you also have the not-for-profit option, which is allowing us to use funds. So.
Okay. And we'll give people a couple more minutes to ask their questions if they would like. Was there anything else you wanted to add before we wrap up?
Not necessarily, just was kind of curious about if you, I don't know if you wanted to open up the microphone, but I did have a, what was causing the delay in closing. And
if anybody wants to share that information, please feel free to submit it in the chat panel. I'm afraid to open up the whole floor just in case we get a whole bunch of answers at one time. Okay. Well, we have no submissions. So it looks like that's it. I guess we'll go ahead and wrap up. Well, thank you again, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you, Wendy, for presenting for us. If you guys do have any more questions about what you've seen, please feel free to contact us. We are here to help you at any time, and we can definitely get you started on what it might take to implement this solution, or just look at your requirements and your overall technology landscape and see where you might want to take your organization as far as your technology goes in the future. So again, thank you, Wendy, for presenting. Thank you all for joining us. Please keep an eye out for that recording in your inbox tomorrow. And until next time, I hope everybody has a great day, and we hope to hear from you. Thank you.